So Nikhat, I think I met you the last time that we did the PACT training. Was it last month, August
It
time?
was, yes, it was.
And between the pair of us, we kind of have had very different outlooks on poverty and lockdown and that, which was discussed quite a bit during that training. What do you think about the training that we did that day?
I'm actually, to be totally honest, I was just thinking about that yesterday, and I was thinking there was a lot to take on board, and it's I need to do the whole three parts of it to
Yes.
then, rather than just doing one. I was just thinking I want to do all three and then see how they fit with each other.
Yeah.
So what do you remember from that training? What stood out for you?
I think the thing that I remember the most was that even though that we're in such a small area of Scotland where we're doing this, that every single part of that area had a different experience of child poverty. It's something that I work in a school. It's something that we deal with on a daily basis in the schools. So it's how we bring what we're getting trained on into our everyday working practice.
Yes, because poverty is such a big, I wouldn't say topic, but it's such a big thing. And then I was thinking of, when I'm thinking of poverty, I think that's one aspect, but then you have the intersectionality as well. And it's, for me, if I'm thinking about poverty, I'm thinking the experience of poverty for somebody, a white Scottish working class person, is going to be different to minority ethnic person who is a migrant or a refugee, or yes, so it's not a very simple thing to explain or to grasp or to get the teachers. But that is the real important thing for teachers to understand, is that it's not a simple thing of the experience of poverty is the same for everybody.
Yeah, exactly. It's not. And if we can get that, if teachers can take that from the training, even just the first session that we did, then I think that they certainly will be able to move forward a little bit in even thinking about this huge word poverty, because it's not just about somebody missing their dinner. It's more than that. It affects their lives, it affects their ambitions, it shuts them down. And what is the point is often what we get. Why do I need to know that? I'm just going to go on the goal. So it's this training, I feel, is going to help us combat some of that within the classroom ourselves, and just open our eyes as to what our actual learners are going through on a daily basis.
Yes, for the teachers to understand, because I'm just thinking about some of the comments that you hear from teachers, and you sometimes feel it's almost like a deficit model, that the poverty is somehow the fault of the people who are in that situation. I've heard that kind of narrative as well. It's like only if they worked hard, only if they just, like got off their backside and went and found a job, or only it's not, or like they're getting this money, why are they not going and getting healthy food?
Yeah.
And to me, the idea is to take that from there and move it to, why are they in that situation? What are the systems? What are the conditions? What are the things? What is the cycle that's put that in their situation? So that's kind of like really important to get them to understand that we need to think of the bigger picture and the wider picture, and how to address those systemic things.
Yeah.
While working to actually meet the needs or make things better for the people, to mitigate the effects of poverty. But that's just one thing.
Yeah, I think one of the other things that I really took from the training was the different things that people are doing across the various authorities in order to help their particular learners to combat poverty. And I think that teachers could take that away as well if they actually take part in the training. They'd be able to see, right, well, okay, that school's doing this, so how can we embed that in our practice and take that into our anti-poverty policy as well?
some of the ideas that, you know, and I'm going to say it might not have been covered in the training because I know Sandra and, you know, her co-leader. So we have had conversations. So it might be from another conversation, but even flipping the kind of like the narrative to thinking about, rather than saying things like, oh, we're helping these families or we're helping these children, having that in the, you know, for example, they were talking about the second-hand uniform, as opposed to this being a handout, it being kind of like put into the context of climate responsibility. We are actually, so you're actually upping the kind of, if people are using second-hand uniform, they're actually doing something really good for the environment. They're actually doing really good for the, so there's a pride element in there. So people can change the narrative to say, well, actually, I'm not gonna go and buy a new uniform. I'm just gonna go and do that.
Yeah. That's certainly what we have. It's something that I set up as I'm a principal teacher of equity within Beath High School in Cowdenbeath, and I set up the eco wardrobe, and I deliberately called it eco wardrobe to take away the stigma of somebody having to come and get something that they might not have at home. We have a cohort of SIM decile 1 to 3 of over 50%, so we needed to do something. We needed to address that. And it's taken off and run, and kids have no stigma about coming and saying, oh, can I get a blazer or something? I think taking that from the training as well, that it's lifting the stigma of poverty, and actually just being like everybody else, wanting to save the planet, wanting to get on a little bit better.
And I think it's some practical ideas like that are really good to offer to the teachers, because it's something very concrete, something very easy to do, and hopefully people will start thinking of how to then shift their thinking in how to present some of the supports that are in place, to make it less stigmatized. Yes. And actually a bit more, so more respectful, more dignified in that sense. And the other thing, I think one of the other thing I liked is some of the authorities are doing training for the children. So for the whole school, just getting the children and the students being involved in what the cost of the school day. Mm-hmm. So they're becoming, you know, like aware. It's not just, so I think it's a whole school approach. So the teachers might be able to then be able to talk to the pupils in a slightly different way, to explain poverty, to explain disadvantage, and to kind of like let the other children know some of the things that they take for granted might not be what's available to everybody.
It's something that we do at Beath. I have my equity captains, and they certainly speak to pupils. They're there on hand lunch times and break to speak to pupils or hand out whatever is needed from the eco wardrobe, etc., toiletries and that sort of thing. And they've certainly taken ownership of that. And I think if we can bring that down through the training, that it's a whole school community, and that will lift stigma as well.
And I think whole school community, intersectionality, practical ideas, the bigger picture, and then the best thing I like is the rights-based approach. So and that ties in with the rights respecting schools as well. So it's not a favor, it's not charity. No, it is their right to it's their right to good education, it's their right to good food, it's their right to good you know, like to be dressed well, it's their right to have these opportunities. So taking away that mind frame of, you know, we're doing something, well, the savior kind of like thing. Actually, we should be doing it for everybody, and that's just the way it is. And if some things are not in place, then it's our responsibility to make sure that we add something to it to mitigate that.
Yeah, I think if we look at the word equity, which means that it's so that everybody has what they need to succeed, rather than equality. And if we are able to take that from the training and give our students what they need to succeed on a daily basis, and that might be different on every day for some students. Some students might be fine, and then all of a sudden they need something. And if we're there for them and we're able to provide everything that they have the right to, then I think that's the important thing.
And something that you said right at the beginning in terms of, you know, like teachers being aware of, or it's almost I was thinking about this in terms of the trauma training that we've had, and we are very much aware of the ACEs and
Yeah,
the impact of ACEs, not just on immediate impact, but the long-term impact and the impact on the physical health and mental health. So all of that, poverty is part of that.
yeah,
It will give children, so sometimes children might feel like they don't have agency, they don't have the power to change things. And these are
yeah,
the kind of things teachers need to realize. Oh,
yeah.
5 minutes.
I think with everything that's happened with COVID as well, COVID-19, poverty is only going to get worse. I was looking at some of the figures earlier, and 17% of our young children across Scotland live in poverty. That's more than 1 in 5 of our children. And one of the things that really got me about that was that if you're a single parent with children aged 5 to 14, if you earn less than 19,400, you are considered to be living in poverty. Now, 19,400 is quite a good wage. And I don't think that enough of our cohort of teachers understand that. And if
Yep.
you're an actual family with two parents, it's 24,800, which we find incredulous, but it does mean that they're not getting what they need.
And the other understanding, I think it would be really good for teachers to get, which I think is there, but I'm not sure it's everywhere, is like hidden poverty, and especially
Yes.
some families who are in affluent areas, and
Mm-hmm.
that the stigma might be worse for those families, and they might be kind of like, because they see everybody around them doing okay, it's harder for them to come up or ask for help, or for people to understand that it might exist. So that's another understanding to have. It's not just something that you look out for and mitigate against and do things about when you're in kind of like areas that we consider deprived areas, or of socioeconomic lower socioeconomic areas. Yeah, so that to me was quite an interesting thing to understand as well, to say, yeah, that's difficult.
Mm-hmm. I think it's part of my job in the school is to try and educate the staff within that. And I think this training is really going to help me to really push the poverty agenda further within the school, and really open the eyes of our teachers, and to show that actually the person sitting in front of you that's dressed lovely, that has the lovely shoes on, etc., they might not have had their tea last night. They might not have been able to get a drink in the morning or anything to eat because their parents have nothing, they're paying their bills and that's it. We have to understand that as well, like you said, with the hidden poverty.
Yes, and it's interesting how sometimes people have this concept that if you're poor, you don't care about certain things.
Yeah,
And you've just given the example of a child who's well dressed, well turned out, everything. So the parents are pouring everything in there because they don't want that stigma for their child, but they
yeah,
might be going without so much
with
in there.
themselves.
And I've heard comments from schools saying, oh, but they've got the latest iPhone, or they've got the latest this, that, and whatnot. But that's because the parents are doing everything so the child doesn't get to
Yeah, they
hear
don't
that.
get bullied,
Yes,
exactly.
yeah.
Bullying is another part of it. I think we discussed that the last time as well during the training. I think the training is going to be absolutely invaluable for any teacher who really wants to further the anti-poverty agenda within their school, and just make sure that everything's equitable.
Absolutely. I think, and there's a big need for that. And like you said, COVID-19, the new normal, the circumstance of that, there are many, many families who were actually not in that situation, who might be now included into the, like when you say 24,000 for two-parent families, 19 for a single-parent family, there might be many families who will enter that bracket because of
Yeah,
COVID-19 and all the impacts of that.
yeah,
People losing their jobs, being made redundant, needing to get trained for new jobs. Yeah.
yeah. Just being able there to use the training to help our kids is going to be the most
Yes.
important thing.
I think
How
understanding is the first bit. So when you understand all these different elements and different aspects,
Mhm.
it's for me, it's always like, why are we doing this? And
Yeah,
then it comes, what do we do? And then comes, how do we do it?
yes,
So why is more really, really important. This is why we want to do this. This is the information we need. to then be
Yeah.
able to say what we do and how we do it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not like a sticking plaster. It's got to be something that's embedded so that all our learners can be helped by it.
Yeah, yeah, and I think there's this place for sticking plaster, but if we just stay there and don't go anywhere else, then that's totally wrong. So we put a sticking plaster and then we go to the root to say,
Yeah.
right, okay, that's the way I look at it. It's like, yeah, they both have their place, but if we do one without the other, then we're not doing the right thing.
Yeah,